Namaste. Welcome to this session. Now we are trying to uh, commence to understand the other means of yoga, which is Vairagya. Vairagya is taken as uh, dispassion, and it is, for a common man, it is more characterized by giving up enjoyments, giving up pleasures, and almost it amounts to removing the springs of life. So this is what is common man's notion, that vairagya means to give up all these objects with which human psyche has gratification, human mind has gratification. And it is of the nature of give up this, give up that, give up these things, give up those things, and embrace the life of a mendicant or an ascetic. Now, this is uh, quite naive to be taking that way. That vairagya means is to go for um, mendicancy or become an ascetic. Now, usually it happens, when do we give up the things? It's usually in a melancholy, uh, in a dejected state of mind. Uh, Usually, man thinks of giving up so many things, which is, of course, temporary. So, man loses all passion uh, in usually a negative state of mind, which is infested with sorrow on account of loss, failures, frustrations, and that is how the vairagya has been looked upon. But the very word vairagya holds on to its meaning, which the dispassion doesn't hold on to its meaning. Because dispassion means not to have passion. Now, where do we have passion? We have passion in the things which gratify our senses, gratify our mind, gratify our psyche. It is those factors and aspects where we have passion. We don't have a passion for something that we don't want, that we don't like, that we dislike, that we hate, that we loathe. So the passion is always there for the things and for people whom we like enormously, and there is a lot of gratification of our mind, psyche, consciousness. So that is what passion is, and then you are supposed to have dispassion. So it has a negative connotation, because to gratify the passions, to have passions, to enjoy the joy coming out of passions is what the life is. Now, when the springs of life are totally removed, then it amounts to this kind of state, that the mind starts going after dispassion, which is against the gravity of senses and mind. So it doesn't go too long that way. Soon it comes back to the track, because of the tendencies of the body, tendencies of the senses, tendencies of the flesh, tendencies of the mind. The tendencies have enormous gravity. So, under such states of mind, negative states of mind, melancholy, sadness, uh, sorrows, that one gets insulated to these tendencies. But soon they go away. So, not to have passion is what dispassion is, or to give up passion is what dispassion is. Now, vairagya the very word doesn't have that connotation. It is to be having viraga, become vitaraga. It is to get away from raga and not get away from sukha or pleasure. In dispassion, what happens? You are suggested to get away from your pleasures, to relinquish the pleasures, to go in opposite directions of pleasures, to have repulsion for pleasure, to take bypass to pleasures. While in Vairagya, it doesn't say that don't take your pleasures. It doesn't say that don't take your delights. But pleasures can be had, delights can be had with vitaraga state. Viraga means attachment. It is only to cut short on attachment or cut short on thirst. So giving up the thirst, the yearn and hankering for the objects of senses, objects of mind, is identified, and some kind of curtailment there is suggested. So therefore it is vitrushna, vigata trushna. Trushna means thirst, and to give up the thirst. Say in a case of say a sensory object, say gustatory object, eating ice cream. Now eating ice cream with fondness, just eating ice cream, and then eating ice cream with fondness, then eating ice cream with enormous thirst for ice cream, lust for ice cream. So we understand just eating the ice cream is not being refused in Vairagya. But to take ice cream with that craze, delirium, is being suggested to be curtailed. So therefore you are not deprived of pleasures of life. You don't have to remove the springs of the life, but you need to be little moderate and temperate. So Vairagya doesn't say give up all objective pleasures, sensory pleasures, mental pleasures, but there should be some temperance and moderation. This is what is being suggested. Now this is quite a wise advice that anyone will be convinced by this, that if you are eating any food item gluttonously, that is not good. But then someone can say you can eat it but don't have glutton, and that is quite sensible advice. So that is what the Vairagya is. It is not going for renunciate condition. It is not necessarily that you should be embracing asceticism or embrace mendicancy and develop avarice for all worldly things. Because if it is avarice and aversion, then it's going to bounce back because of the tendencies. So it is not give up this, give up that, give up as many things possible, give up more and more things, give up everything. That is not what Vairagya is. It's quite unnatural to human life or any life. So dispassion will not be a right word for Vairagya. Vairagya is Vairagya itself, thirstlessness, and developing temperance in consumptions of those things behind which we usually go with a craze, delirium, and gluttony. So therefore it is not suggesting asceticism. Vairagya doesn't suggests asceticism, taking everything discreetly. Even you can take pleasures, enjoyments in life, delights in life, but discreetly, judiciously, and discreetly. To be judicious and to be discreet in our consumptions is what the Vairagya is suggesting. Vigata Raga, Vigata Trishna. The thirst has to be given, because if we have thirst, then we will be actually atrocious in social psychology point of view. We will commit atrocities. If we have thirst for something, then we grab it, we clinch it from somebody's hands even. So, Vairagya means temperance in all those pleasures and delights and happinesses which come through the gates of body, the gates of senses, the gates of mind, psyche, consciousness. That is what the Vairagya is. Now, if you are exposed to all objects in the world, objects of the world, and then you are asked to practice Vairagya, then it becomes difficult. Because we have enormous gravities to certain objects, irresistible gravities for certain objects of the world, certain kinds of pleasures. You have irresistible gravities. So, usually what happens in idealism, Vairagya is practiced in idealism. So, all the objects of the world, sensory objects, mental objects, pleasurable objects, delightful objects are around. And now when they all are around, it is very difficult to practice temperance and moderation. So the Vairagya in normative sciences or Vairagya in ideology is one thing, but in yoga it is a different thing. That should be understood at the outset. How? You see, yoga doesn't say be with all objects around you and then try to practice restraint and practice Vairagya or practice dispassion. Because there are enticing objects. Now, when there are enticing objects around, to be practicing anything of the nature of dispassion is to be whiplashing. Whiplashing the calls of senses, whiplashing the calls of body, whiplashing the calls of mind, etc. That is suppression, and then we'll have to suppress, we'll have to stampede the tendencies. So this is not the Vairagya suggested in worldliness, basically. When it's coming as means of yoga, when it comes as means of yoga, basically you turn down the external world from your psyche consciousness. Because you are doing something internally, and that's why you are shunned yourself, or the objects are shunned from your mind. The Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, all these enticing sensory objects. So basically, you are not surrounded by objects when you are going to practice this Vairagya. So understand, this very important condition. You are not said that have all your sensory objects around you and then practice restraint and practice renunciation or practice dispassion. Basically, one gets within. So in the internal realm, the Vairagya has altogether different material. It's a different material than the material of Vairagya that would come in dispassion in the external realm. And therefore there are some philosophies which advise that the objects which are enticing you, try to see them with, in a fault finding lens of your mind. So when you are finding faults in those objects, then you will be uh, getting away from those objects. There are certain philosophies who have negativistic tone, and they start convincing you about the faults in the objects. The faults are made to be identified, and then with fault finding, that kind of negative mind, one really fights the battle of passion. So there are sermons to tell you whatever objects you are going after, there will be a kind of a critical analysis of it, and somebody will be negatively finding faults and will be telling you about the faults, that these are the faults in the objects about which you are a lot of liking or disposition, or you are fond of those, you have gluttony for those. So they start looking at the objects negativistically. And then it is easy to be weaning oneself away from the objects. Then you will start perhaps hating. So show something whereby you will start hating. Show something whereby you will start abhorring. And then naturally you will be weaned away. But this turns out a negative mind. It doesn't turn out a healthy mind, negative mind. So that's the way you will be trying to develop vairagya more often, by becoming critical of the objects, identifying their defects and faults and dangers and harms and the inducements, etc., which come through the objects, and then put a tag of fault on the object itself. When the objects are put this hashtag on it, and then it is convenient to convince you to have abhorrence or aversion for the object, and when you have aversion for the objects, you will not go closer to the objects. But then that is really a negative tone with which it is done. Now, that's what happens in the external realm. We all, even if you idealize vairagya, we will try to be not compromising with our worldliness, and we will try to practice vairagya. This is very difficult, improbable even, and perhaps it can be harmful even. So here vairagya is not suggested that way. The vairagya in yoga, that means basically you are in the internal realm. You are internalized, you are inwardly. Now in the internal realm, and that too in a associated conditions, unified conditions, needed conditions, integrated conditions. So that is very important factor, that it is such a condition, needed, associated, unified condition. Otherwise, in an isolated condition, you can have all objects of the world in your mind. So even if you go inside, you will be having those objects in front of your mind, and then you will not be able to practice vairagya. But that is not the way. You have not to take the external world into you in your inwardliness. And that happens to isolated mind. The isolated mind will be always creating its own objects, or the objects which we fancy, objects for which we have attachment, likes, etc. They will be fabricated inside from the mental matter, mind matter. And then we will be still dwelling in those objects, which are mental objects. Mental object of Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. That is not the way here. In yoga, you are basically going for associated conditions. Now, in associated conditions, the breath and breath awareness becomes a catalyst. So, the body will transcend the bodiness, and the mind will transcend the mindness. Otherwise, the body and mind both have their allurements, both have their likes and delights and pleasures and crazes, etc. But in associated condition, that doesn't happen. In associated condition, you don't have mental craze or craze of the body organs and body, craze of mind and mind organs, craze of senses, because they are all sublimated in unified condition. And in that condition, the Vairagya is being suggested. So again, to quote Bhagavad Gita and Arjuna's question, quite genuine question, candid question, that how can one restrain the mind? The mind might be restrained from, say, modifications, modulations, but how will you restrain the mind from objects? Because the mind has gravities for objects. So then Arjuna thought that renunciation, etc., is easy said than done. And that's why it was conceived to be a very difficult measure and means. But in yoga, when you get prepared for yogic practices, you turn out a yogic material for in your asanas, in your pranayam, in whatever meditative practices, you are supposed to go for those preparatories where you have needed conditions. When you have needed conditions, their tendencies diminish, shrink. And therefore the Vairagya in the internal realm will not be that difficult pursuit or effort. So here it is effort to what we have been using the word dispassionate the mind. And I just now told you that dispassion is not the right word, but that's how we are used to this word, dispassion. So effort to dispassionate the mind, effort for even Vairagya, because Vairagya needs an effort. So there will be effort for Vairagya as well. Now this effort is done in the internal realm with associated organs of body, mind, senses, breath, etc. They are integrated conditions, they are unified conditions. And then the Vairagya will not be as difficult as it is taken to be. Say for example, to ask someone to embrace Vairagya is a difficult proposition, undoubtedly. But somebody fast asleep and you keep all his enticing objects around him, where is the problem? That means it is not the objects which are radiating passion, the passion is within you. It is not that objects are passionable objects. Although we have passion for certain objects, they don't become passionable objects, because same objects for which you have craze, and then you have yearning, or you have that lust or even thirst or passion, if those objects are around you while you are fast asleep, then they create no problem. So in a state of sleep, even all those enticing objects around do not create a problem. So in a wakeful state, they create formidable problems. But then I have been telling you, yoga is a state. Yoga is a state of consciousness like a wakeful state, dreamy state, dormant state, the fourth state. Yoga is also itself a state, and in that state, it won't be difficult because you don't have objects around you. Basically, you have gone internally, and in the inside world, you don't have these objects. And even if they are there, they don't create a problem. Like objects don't create a problem when you are fast asleep or when you are unconscious. So in yogic state also they will not create a problem. And when in yoga you are making an effort to be steady the mind and be calm the mind, you are also integrating the Vairagya practices in it. Now, this has to be really understood that the Abhyasa sadhana, that is, effort to be steady the mind, itself integrates effort to dispassionate the mind. And therefore, now that Arjuna's question as to how Vairagya would be so difficult, it is impossible, improbable also, because that's one of the factors which is not bestowing the steadiness of the mind. Why is our mind not steady? This we have considered on earlier occasions. It is the passion, it is thirst, it is tendency to gratify one's own senses and mind, and the other factors such as anxiety, worry, etc. So here, those things are not there. There is no tomorrow in the internal realm. Whereas in the external realm, you have the tomorrow. You can't be having no advertence of time at all. And in the internal realm, you don't have that. So there is no anxiety about tomorrow. When we are doing our yoga or even whatever practical aspect we are doing it, which the world today does, some asanas, some pranayam, etc., or meditation, when we embark upon it, we don't think of it whether it will come tomorrow. Is it coming today or not? That is what we see. We don't think of tomorrow, whether it will come tomorrow or whether it will not come tomorrow. So there is no anxiety of the future in the internal realm. And there is also no chastisement, harassment of the past. And that's how the practice of yoga is. Look at the perspective of time, from the perspective of time here. What did you say? You are in present and you don't have interference of the past and interference of the future. So that also comes quite handy here in the internal realm. So the mind is steadied with those factors, that you don't have tomorrow, you don't have anxiety, etc. Now here in the internal realm, it is not a field for you to have passion, desire, etc. All our desires are outside. We have desires with respect to things outside us. The desires are inside, but the desires pertain to something outside us. Like I want to gain this, I want to attain this, I want to have that, which is outside you. We have passion for the things which are outside. However, the passion is inside. The passion is inside, but the passion objects are outside. Now, in the internal realm, we don't have the passion objects. So, understand, the advocacy of Vairagya or to Vairagya is in the internal realm. So it doesn't become that difficult proposition as it would become for things outside us, for which we have gravity, for which we are having some tendencies about those objects. So this is the Vairagya in the internal realm. And therefore, it won't be that much difficult. But then, basically, we must be temperate and moderate. Unlike in case of sleep, howsoever you might be intemperate, immoderate, once you go to sleep, you get that blanket of moderation, blanket of temperance, once you are fast asleep. So, it doesn't need that you should practice dispassion, whether you have practiced any dispassion or not, once you are fast asleep, the blanket envelops you. And that blanket is of dispassion. But however, to have that a good sleep or quicker sleep, we need to have dispassion of the awakeful state. We have to inculcate some vairagya in our awakeful state. So awakeful state is a state to inculcate vairagya. More than practice vairagya. Because if you try to practice vairagya while you are in externalized mode, externalized condition, awakeful state, outwardly state. So outwardly state is wonderful field for you to inculcate vairagya, imbibe vairagya, not really practice vairagya. So therefore similarly, for us to improve the grade of vairagya in yoga, which is in the internal realm, we need to inculcate something in our awakeful state. We'll have to be moderate, we'll have to be temperate. So we will have to have some counseling by ourselves or somebody doing the counseling for us, so that we inculcate the value of vairagya. So in an awakeful state, we need to work for vairagya. We need to work to inculcate vairagya principle, the values of vairagya. And not the very practice of vairagya. Very practice of vairagya will be of the nature of whiplashing tendencies and stampeding the tendencies, driving away the tendencies, suppressing them, etc., etc. So that won't work well. This is what we have to understand. So to get vairagya of higher potency in our yogic practices, it implies that we must inculcate vairagya in our external condition of mind, externalized condition of mind, external activity of our mind, and our worldliness. We'll have to inculcate values of vairagya so that they will come handy, they will come more potently when we are working in the internal realm. So practice of vairagya in yoga is in internal realm. Inculcating the vairagya value is while we are outwardly, when we are worldly, when we are in our worldly business activity of life, when we are in awakeful state. So that's a field for us to inculcate vairagya. And the field to practice vairagya is in the internal realm in yoga by associated conditions, needed conditions, integrated conditions, unified conditions, amalgamated conditions. So this has to be understood here. So we have just now opened out the portal of vairagya, and let us try to proceed further and get to know more about the jnana aspect in vairagya. Then one more thing, that vairagya in classical sense is power of energy, while our idea of vairagya is loss of energy. We get dispassion when our potencies are depleted, when our power, strength are depleted. We helplessly take recourse to vairagya. Like being a very, very old man, although the same person had a lot of craze for ice cream, now being old, he cannot be taking ice cream. So it is helplessness, haplessness, hopelessness. So usually the vairagya is embraced by a common man out of helplessness, haplessness, hopelessness. But the vairagya that is really projected in adhyatma, in spiritual practices, is not of that kind. It is not out of helplessness, hopelessness, and helplessness. It is actually a power manifestation, and not a depleted condition of power. Because the temperance and moderation needs some potency in the mind. Unless you have that power of the mind, you cannot really have any resolution, cannot have some temperance or moderation, because they are power manifestations. It is not that out of weakness you are temperate. It is not that out of weakness that you are really moderate. Because that kind of thing is helplessness, helplessness, hopelessness. So we have to understand this Vairagya in Adhyatma and Vairagya in the world. Vairagya coming in normative sciences, where it is idealism. And while in Adhyatma it is not idealism, it is very means. Nowhere it is said that it is ideally better to have Vairagya, you will be better in yoga and Adhyatma. It's very means here. It has been suggested as means. The means always should have potency. You can't have low potency means and no potency means. The means must be potent. And usually our idea of Vairagya is that it is impotency or lack of potency or loss of potency. And therefore, we try to take up to our idea of Vairagya. Here it is coming as means, and the means are always powerful, strong, they have inbuilt power, and therefore they become means. Something that is powerless will never become means. Something that is powerful will become means. While our idea of Vairagya is something that in depleted conditions of energies, there is Vairagya. I cannot take it, therefore I am not taking it. And then therefore to have better reinforcement, we start saying I don't like it even now. Actually the fact is that you cannot eat ice cream when you are 90-95 years of age. But then to reinforce your resoluteness, you say I don't like it. Let me start disliking it. Let me start hating it. So this aspect comes very much in a negative tone in worldly life, in worldly dynamics of dispassion. Now, Vairagya is a kind of restraint here. It is restraint over tendencies. It is putting brakes, applying brakes on tendencies. And therefore it has to have power. Say for instance, in an automobile, if you want to have upward trading, you are climbing up, you need high power gear. You can't be going in low power gear when you are in ghat sections of mountains. When there's steep upward movement, you go on high power gears, which are lower gears of your car. So to be climbing up, you need to come on lower gears. And when you are climbing down, again you have to come on lower gears. You require high power gears to be climbing down. So, Vairagya in life comes in two ways. One is that you will have to negotiate upward path to attain something in life, attain some extraordinary thing in the life. And therefore you will require high power mind. And that high power mind is by restraint. Otherwise you will not be able to take the climb, negotiate the climb. And then when it is downwards, If you do not apply the brakes or come to lower gears, your vehicle will reel down. Therefore, you need there too. So wherever you feel that your mind can reel down, what comes handy is Vairagya power. And when you need to negotiate upwards trend, upwards negotiations, again you require high power gear, and that is again Vairagya. So Vairagya will help you attain something which is not normal, and Vairagya will also help you avoid which is a very normal kind of fall. So in order that we do not fall from the plane of being human beings, in order that we don't fall, we need to have Vairagya, so that we will not slip down and reel down like a car having no brakes and is on mountain slopes. What will happen to the car? So it must have brakes, it must have the lower gears, so that the lower gears will control its automotion. So to go upwards, we need a power. That power is Vairagya. And in order to not reel down, and in order to prevent fall, again we need Vairagya, so that we will not fall from the plane of human beings, because life conditions can have allurements, enticements, and you can easily reel down. So to prevent, we need the Vairagya power. And to be climbing upwards to attain something which is not normal, which is super normal, we need Vairagya. So Vairagya is a power in our worldly life. So understand, the Vairagya has a potency. Classical concept of Vairagya has potency and not dearth of potency. While helpless, hapless, hopeless people will also have a kind of Vairagya that is called Smashana Vairagya in Adhyatma Shastra. Smashana Vairagya. Smashana means the cremation ground. Like everyone is dispassionate in cremation ground. When you are taken a corpse there for disposal, naturally, how is the mind? Thirstless and depleted in energies, depleted in power. So the Vairagya is power. Vairagya is not lack of power in Adhyatma, in spiritual process, while Vairagya will be more a lack of power when it is, that's why it is called pseudo Vairagya. When people are frustrated, there are depleted energies. They think Vairagya is a better thing to be embraced. When they lose all powers and potencies because of aging, etc., because of disease, etc., the melancholy carpet makes them feel that they should embrace Vairagya. But that is powerlessness. Therefore, it is pseudo Vairagya. So we should be little more discerning with regards to essential Vairagya, right Vairagya, proper Vairagya, and pseudo Vairagya. Because pseudo Vairagya will be deceiving us. So I want to culminate this session by making just a point that Vairagya is a power. It is an exalted power. You need exalted power to be doing yoga. You cannot be in a depleted energy levels, energy conditions for yoga. So it's power manifestation. Vairagya in classical sense is a power manifestation, and Vairagya in pseudo sense is depleted conditions of powers. It is powerlessness, which makes us reject the pleasures. It is powerlessness which makes us reject the pleasures of the world. And it is not that is not Vairagya here. So Vairagya is a power manifestation, is what must be engraved in our minds. So with that, we will end this session. Namaskar all of you.